So let's look at this. We're really looking at this X3 one. We're gonna evaluate this. Now, what I was saying is before just running this and seeing what the result is, that's always a good way to do it. But I think another good way as you're learning to code and just even as you're just working on hard problems, trying to just do this as the computer and kind of think how this is going to run underneath the hood. That's really what's going to make you like write code better. If you can like just be really literal about all of this stuff. So let's go run this in our head. So we're calling it right here. Is num key value greater than 5? I'm calling this function and I'm passing it an object with number. The number key, that's going to be 7, and is odd is true. So when we run this function, this number object really, this parameter really becomes this thing right here. So then I do num object dot num. What is num object dot num? In this particular case, when I'm running it in this line.
Well, I was going to say there's not a num in that X3. It says number instead of num.
Yeah, there's not. The thing I'm passing it does not have a num key. So, if I threw this in Node and just stored this to like a variable, so we could like kind of experiment. If I do x.num, what do you think that's going to be? Even before I type it. Here's x. Does x has a num? Probably going to be, it has a number, but it does not have a num. So x.num is undefined. Well, do you think undefined is greater than 5? No. Do you think it's less than 5? No. So if it doesn't matter if it's greater or less than 5. So that's going to be undefined greater than 5. That's false. So we're going to return false. So you would expect this to be false. Oh, I think I ran the wrong one. So node sandbox.js. So that's false. Now this might give you like, if this was like, if you said 2 here, you might think your code's working. Because you could be like, oh, my number is 2. 2 is less than 5 in your head, and that's returning false. And you'd think that was working. But it's not, because if our number is greater than 7, it's going to be false if we pass it something that is, a string. I mean, it doesn't really matter. Like, fact is, we don't have a num key. So this function, if I don't give it a num key, it's always going to return false. Maybe I want to do something like this. If not So maybe now I could do something like, hey, if they give me, if they're calling my function and they don't give me the right thing, then I could maybe do something else. I could say like, hey, use my function properly. Row. I can have my code break. So I can actually throw an error. I'll be like, hey, you're not giving me a num. I'm gonna break the code. So I can handle this in my function definition. With like, I could throw an error, I could give them a message. But what I'm expecting when I'm defining this function, this num object, better have that, num key. It's got to be a num. I'm expecting that to be a number. I don't even really care about that, but that's what I'm expecting for this. Does that make sense? Let me do something else. Let's just kind of keep going with this example. Let's switch this up just a little bit. Because I could write this a different way. I could do this with two ifs. I could say, hey, if this is less than or 5, return false, right? That is the same. Agree, disagree. Let's first take out, I'm going to comment this out. So I could say, hey, if the number is greater than 5, return true. If the number is less than 5, return false. So let's do, this is giving the num key 2. This is giving the num key 7. X3 is not defined. Let's just, let's go ahead. Just throw this log out here for now. Cool. False and true. 2 is less than 5. 7 is greater than 5. So this is the same, right?
Yeah.
Who can think of a case where this is not the same? Because I can think of one where this actually, let's do, I think this will probably break it.
Wouldn't you need to, for that one to work, wouldn't you need to add the equals behind the greater than or less than symbol?
Yeah. Well, let's think about, before we do this, let's think about what's going to happen. And let's run this. So I'm giving this a num key and the value is 5. Is 5 greater than 5? It's not.
No, it's equal to it.
Is 5 less than 5? No, it's not. Let's do this as x4. So what is x4 going to be? Kind of combining some stuff here. So this is all commented out, so we can kind of ignore that. So if we pass it 5 here, what are we going to return?
False.
Well, we don't hit this statement, right?
Oh, yeah.
So we run this if statement, we run that if statement. And we get here, what do we do? Return, what are we going to return? Right? Let's go through this one more time. I'm num5. I'm JavaScript, so I'm going to call this function. Does the num object dot num, which is 5, is that greater than 5? Nope. So let's just skip this line or skip that if. Let's go to this next if. Is num object 5, is 5 less than 5? Nope. So let's skip that. Oh, I'm at the end of my function. I don't return anything, but what do I return by default if I don't return anything?
Undefined.
Undefined. So this whole thing becomes undefined. So x4 should be undefined. x4 is undefined. But what if, does this change anything if I switch this to an else? Is x4 going to be undefined?
It'll be false.
Yeah, now it's going to be false because 5 is not greater than 5, and then we return. Just here we do return false. Okay, so let's do this. Let's fix this to less than or equal 5. Let's fix that. Now they're the same, right? Well, let's do our x3. Let's go back to our x3. Now we don't have, because in the past, if we give it something that does not have a num key, it returned false. But now I have these two if statements. I'm going to pass it this object that does not have the num key. So what is this going to return? What if I do is undefined greater than 5? Is undefined less than or equal to 5? No. So what is x3 going to be now? Let me save this. I'm not logging that either. So there can be these weird little differences where you would think that if I did in two ifs and greater than and less than or equal to, like this would be the exact same thing as doing this, right? It's not though, for this one weird case. I do the if else, then that thing where if I pass it a bad object, I get back false. If I do the two if statements, then this x3 would be undefined. So there's, I can't really just, I've been stressing this since week 1. When you're defining these functions, when you're using variables, you know, it's really important that you are like doing this. I mean, we can do this in our code, but as like a bonus, but it's 100% necessary that you're doing this in your head, that you're and this is a skill. It kind of takes time because it can get like very inception-y, but and can get very cluttered because you're like needing to keep track of what you're expecting things to be. So this, I'm defining a function. I'm just declaring this parameter. I'm just calling this parameter num object. It can be anything. I could call this object. What I really want this to be is object with num key. That is a number. That's really what I'm expecting this to be. Object with num key that is a number. So if they come in here and they give me a num key and that's not a number, well, that's another one. Like I don't know how that's going to work. Like Let's not throw an error so we can like not have this break. Just do a log instead. Use my function properly. I'm spending a lot of time with this, but is this part making this whole like being aware of the data, is this like really settling in? I'm expecting this object with number key to have a num key. Need num key. So if they give me this, if it doesn't have that num key, I'm going to say, hey, yo, use my function properly, need num key. What should I say in this message to be a little more specific? Like, what do I know when I get here? I know I have a num key. Like I know right here I have, and that right now it's any. So what I do next, check to see if it's a number. So here I can see check to see if there is a num key. So if I get past this first check and it doesn't, well, let me ask you, how do I know right here, line 61, I have a number, I have an object that has a num key? How do I like 100% know that? Or
because you already got past the first one.
yeah, because what would happen if I didn't?
You get that error.
It's not an error. This one's not
Or
an
they,
error.
yeah, the log.
It's not the log.
The
What is
return.
it's the return.
Yeah.
Because I could, if I don't have the return, then all of a sudden I don't know if I have the num key right here. I would log it, but I wouldn't know that I would have it. It's since I return, this is going to stop the function. Like function stops here with return. So if they don't give me the num key, I'll log I don't have, need num key, and I'm going to return. Bad data, no num. Okay, so now I can check the next thing. Now I do have, now I do not have a num key. Let's check to see if that's a number. If it is bad, let's just give them a log need for num key needs number. And then I can return. Probably not num key.
So on line 64, you're checking if the key is called number. Am I right?
No, this is the type of function.
Oh,
This,
type of, I didn't see that. Okay, gotcha.
and just let's just review that. So I can do type of what, and that will tell me the type of data it is. I can do type of one, and that's a string. Type of array is a little interesting. You'd think that to be array. Arrays are actually objects, and object. How do I see if something's actually in an array? Well, I can use the array class and do like is array. Pass it in an array. So I can see if something's in an array. That's what I'm kind of just doing with that. I'm checking to see if this is a number. So now if I look at my, let's throw these in order. So let's actually do these. Yeah. Okay, so X3, bad data, no number key. Bad data, no number key. If I go to X5, that's bad data. It has a number key, but that needs to be a number. Why would, okay, so what's the difference if I throw an error?
Do you not get that return?
The error, like I don't even, yeah, the error is like not going to, like it's just going to break. My code's going to break for any of these ones that are bad, and it just stops the first one it finds. So if I have those two uncommented, so that's X. So I need to like make sure I don't use those here. Like it works, but the second I go ahead and like try to do one that is not a number, it throws an error. Is there a difference between throwing this console.log right here and right here? Like, why are we, what is this error doing? What kind of happens if we switch this up like this? Because notice here, I'm not getting any of those X1, X2 logs. What happens if I move these right underneath? X1 is false, X2 is true. Boom, there's our error. Why did throwing these right below the lines make these log and then it stops right here?
Because before it was going through all of them and then throwing the error at 3, but because it's going through them in order, it's logging them and then throwing the error, right?
Yeah, your code is running from top to bottom. So we start here, it goes, it runs it, it logs it. Then we go to this X2, we give it good data, we run it, X2 is true. Then we go and we give it bad data, boom, we throw our error and our code stops right there. So our code is breaking right here. Why does it say it's breaking on line 56? So it's stopping right here, right?
I'm guessing that's where it's trying to get called.
56, that's where we're throwing the error.
Okay, yeah.
But I can actually see right here, like there's actually like a stack, like a trace. Notice how it's saying sandbox.js line 85. So it is kind of saying, oh, we were like right here. I was at line 85 and then I broke at 56. So sometimes, or actually the majority of the time, you can actually have these traces of like the function calls, because you usually like function calls are nested inside of functions. So you can get a trace of like function calls, you know, where it broken. So it's saying, hey, I called this function on line 85. Like I'm currently calling this function. And then inside of that is where it broke. So I'm running line 85 and now I'm in line 56. That's where I broke.
One other thing to that, James, what does the 15 or the 10 after that mean?
I think it's like how far indented, like where. I don't know if that is exactly true. That's like.
Is it maybe the characters? Like count the characters over? I've always kind of assumed that's what it was.
I think it is. Does that sound about right? Is that 15 characters? I think it is like. Because yeah, the 56, that's the line number, and then the 15 is probably the character count, but that's about,
Makes it a lot more, a map coordinate or something to tell you.
yeah. But the line, I don't know, and once again, it's, I mean, there's this is telling me, yeah, line 85 is kind of where it's getting called, and it's kind of leaning up to line 56, and then I don't ever look at, those are probably the characters. So if I don't throw the error though, and I just, you know, do it, I don't even need to do a log. Let's just not do a log because now my code doesn't break. It just returns a string. Let's use that X5. So sometimes, why would you want your code to, like, why wouldn't I just return, like, why would I purposely break my code?
I think it's important just so you can understand it better.
What's the benefit of code just breaking?
You'll end up understanding it more because you have to go digging into it to, you know, trace it back to where it broke.
It's not just about understanding it. It's that is nice for, it's definitely nice for us, but that's not it's definitely, you don't want to have your code break so you can understand it. It's even more like straightforward than that. Let's say like let's just say Bob, or let's just say, I don't know, this is like some third party finds this method. Or like some third party or like a team member defines this method. Or you do it. I mean, what? I'm defining this method, and I'm expecting if anyone uses it, that when they use it, they give me an object that has a num key. Like this is the same thing. Like I give you a car, and that car takes unleaded gas. I'm giving you a function, and you need to give that an object with a num key. And then someone else comes and uses my function. Why would I just have it throw an error instead of having it work?
Because, I mean, that's the whole point of the code. Like, if it worked with everything, it'd be useless.
Bro, it's like you are using my function wrong. Stop. You don't know what you're doing. Figure it out. Like think if on a car, if someone you have a car, and if someone tried to add I don't know, water, like it just wouldn't work. It would break. Like they couldn't even do it. You're just like your valve, like the gas tank wouldn't even open. Like wouldn't that be cool if you could do that? If someone tried to add water to your gas tank, you would just break your gas tank. Like you break the feature that would allow them to add water. And they would be like, well, what the hell? Why are you breaking my gas tank? I'd be like, well, stupid. Like you don't put water in a gas tank. If you're trying to put water in a gas tank, I'm not going to let you do it. So that's where it's kind of like some languages do this. They want to, like Java is a language where it's like, it breaks early. Because if you're doing something like this, you're not using my function correctly. And so I'm going to break your code, because it's like, and it's very useful, because then I get this error saying, hey, my code's broken. I need to figure out what I'm doing wrong. Because sometimes it's not just that the person's stupid. It's code gets very complicated, and I'm not just hard coding something. I could maybe know that I need to give this a number key, but maybe I'm just passing it some random variable that I think has a number key that is a number. Let foo equal num. I think foo is this thing, because foo lives right up here, and but then somehow it changes to to not be a number. And although I'm not going to be aware of that, and I think I'm using it right, now the function's going to break, and I'm going to be like, oh man, somehow foo got screwed up. I need to go figure out why foo got screwed up. And then I'd go and think, this person who wrote this function, like, ah, man, thank you for telling me that, the thing I was passing was not the right kind of data. People who have just kind of, they very much know that they only need to throw unleaded car in their gas, but they accidentally threw diesel in it. Everyone's heard that story, right? So with programming, we can do stuff to prevent that. We can just have it break and then have them figure out what they're doing. I'm gonna throw this back though, so it's a little more, so we can actually see why this is breaking. Does that? So when we're coding and we're kind of learning, we don't do this kind of stuff. But it's kind of, it makes it easier. There's less code we have to write, but then we get ourselves into trouble because we might not be thinking about, you know, what, like the kind of data we're working with. Is that like crystal clear? I like spent like an hour on this, I feel like, but it's very, very important. So I'm going to go back. I'm just, because I select this out. Actually, I don't. Actually, throw this in here. Okay. Let's go back to my sandbox. Of all of this. So what we were talking about is we had our numbers array, right? We had an array of numbers. We were mapping over them and we were returning this array of num objects. So let's just go back and see what that was, just to like refresh. Is odd is not fine. I think I didn't save that. So there's our array of num objects, right? They're an object that have num, a num key, which is a number, is odd, which is a Boolean. Because we were now trying to, now we want to go through and we want to remove all of the numbers whose num key, or all of these num objects whose num is less than 5. So let's do that right here. It's, you know, less, or, well, I guess this would be more than 5. So I'm going to take my num objects, and now I want to do the filter method. What, I mean, I hovered over that N, and like VS Code knew what that was, or knew what it looked like. That's what I'm saying. You should know what N is. So right here, I'm like, just so we can see, I'm going over my numbers, I'm mapping them, and then I'm logging them. So you can see them right here. And then I'm calling a filter on this array. So filter, I want to give a function whose parameter is going to match this, one of these data structures, like kind of skeleton. So what type of data structure would I expect N to be?
The objects, right?
Objects, be more clear.
An array of objects.
It's not, sorry, it's not an array. It's, my num objects is an array.
Oh, that's right.
Would it be a key value pair?
It would, yeah, it would be it would be an object, but what keys would I have on that? Or would I expect to have on N?
You'd have the num key and then the is odd key.
Yeah, and if I hover over that, like if VS Code is telling me that. Because I'm calling filter on this array, which is this array of objects. So I need to give it a function that takes one of these, that can take one of these objects, and then I can do something. If this function I give it returns true, it's going to keep it. If the function returns false, it's not going to keep it. Well, let's just pass it this function that we spent so much time on. Is num key value greater than 5? Right? This is the function we do where we check to see if the num key is greater than 5. Right? Let's just pass that to my filter. Saying I'm using it before initialization, 48. Is num key. Oh, it doesn't like that I'm using this function before I define it. So I can move this function up above it when I'm using it, or I can actually, so let's just do it that way. I'm going to take this function, Command X, and move it before I use it. So I'm using it right here. So let's just define it right there. I also have a lot of, I'm going to get rid of this log. Let's wrap this like this, more than 5. It almost seems to be working, except there's this one with 0. That's a little strange. Why is the 0 in there? Because I do have like, I mean, there's like a 2, there's a 3. It's like, for some reason, it's keeping that 0. It's getting rid of all the other ones less than 5. Let's maybe put my throws in there. Maybe it doesn't like one of these. What I'm going to do, I'm going to comment out this log. Comment out these ones. All right. Where's that throw error, line 54. So now I want to see like, why is this throwing an error? So now I can just do like a console.log right here. Let's see what this thing is that's causing this error to be thrown. Num is 0. What? Like, man, that's like, if not object num key dot num. What is going on there? Why is that throwing an error? Any ideas?
Not sure.
Not sure.
My only guess is the only thing that would not be an object with num key would just be 0.
Well, yeah,
right?
let's
So, and then that would cause the error. I don't know. That's my only guess.
so let's look at what is object with, like, let's log what is this? Object with key that is a number dot nom. Let's just log that. That is 0. So this is, in this case, let's just kind of comment it out so we can see it. So this gets evaluated to 0. If not 0. What is 0, like, if 0, is that true or false?
That's true.
That's true. So if I make that, no, actually, sorry, that's not true.
0 is always.
Zero's not a number.
What is the weird thing about 0? Is 0, remember the concept of truthy and falsy.
Falsy, yeah.
We'll see.
0 is a falsy value. So if I do not, that becomes true.
True. Yeah.
What if it's like 1?
That's true.
That's true. So then, you know, if it's not 1, that's false. So that's like a valid number. So there's this one weird edge key, like what I'm doing is, I'm checking to see like if I'm actually evaluating this to the number, which is then going to evaluate to 1 or 2 or whatever number. And then I check to see if, it's truthy. So this is actually kind of it works. It's going to work with every number except 0, but then I'm going to get a bad error. Like it's not going to work with 0. And this was unintentional, but this is the benefit of this throwing an error. Like, this is awesome, because when I throw in, if I left that error in there, because now I'm just doing my map function. Like I'm doing now I'm doing something totally different, and I just want to throw it. I want to throw my map. I want to just map over my objects and throw out that function that just checks and see if the value is greater than 5. So now I can run this. And it throws an error. It's like, why is it's kind of nice that this is throwing an error, because I know something's broken. If this doesn't throw an error, and right here I just return like this bad data, no num key, my code works. Like, it doesn't break. What happened to my 0? Did I change this? Oh yeah, I need to switch this back to a not. So it works, like my code's working, but like, I'm not gonna know, because I'm probably not gonna go and be inspecting to make sure that like all my numbers are greater than 5. I'm just gonna kind of assume that this worked. But man, there's this one weird edge case where the number 0 got in. And that's the only place, that's the only thing that would break it. And then I would just maybe assume that, you know, all of these things in this array, the num is greater than 5. So then I could do like a let nums equal more than 5 dot map. Why is it not like this? Nums greater than 5. Let's call this nums. I might like, so I could map over these and I would expect this nums 5 to not have anything less than 5, but boom, it has a 0 in there. And maybe like I'm gonna go use this array to go like divide things, you know, as the denominator. And then somehow like I end up doing division by 0 and it just like blows up my app like way down the line. If I throw the error, I would catch it sooner. But the error is actually, this is where the error is. It's actually in this function. But I would still find, my code would still break and I would be like, oh man, I need to like fix this part right here. So I could do something like this. I could do like object dot keys. So I could get all my keys and I could do like a contain. So I could write this. I'm like, oh wait, this is not the best way to write this because I get that one error or if they give me 0. So then I can come in here, I can kind of make this maybe a little more robust. Let's see what this area is. Object dot keys. Let's just go into node and do this. So I can have an object let y equal. Let's do x is 1. Let's do z is 2. So I can do object dot keys and pass it my object. That gives me an array. I swear there's like a contain method in JavaScript. Contain. Oh, let's find. Is it not find? Okay. How can I not remember this? So I'm just going to Google, see if item in array, yes, includes, it's includes, okay. So what I can do, I can grab my keys from my object and then I can see if it includes that. So I could do includes. So I could just change my logic to see if like I have that key in there. Object.keys. Oh. Object.keys. I need to actually pass it the object. Dot includes number. How am I still getting that 0? Why is that 0 still coming through? Oh, this needs to be a not. If it does not include, you negate that logic. Okay, yeah, sorry, I just forgot to negate it. So now I just, I found that error. I decided to rewrite it. And now I get rid of that one edge case where it's that 0. So going back to the filter. So there's a lot going on there. So I can pass it the function that checks to see if the num key is greater than 5. So there's my more than 5. What if I want to see if it's odd? Or like, only odds. So here I want to pass a function to see if num object is odd. So I do X. So I'm calling this on my nums object. Remember, this is what they look like. How could I grab only the odds? And let's use the is odd Boolean that we have on it. Or the is odd key. Is that going to work? So I think we got a little backtracked with this, trying to figure out this bug, but just to remind you, this is what our num objects look like. It's an array of objects that have num and is odd key. So which one of these, which is the right way, or are they both right, or are they both wrong? Which one is the right way to filter out all of the objects in here where the is odd, or the number is odd, is true? This
That first
way-
one.
The first one. Why doesn't this one work? Because that's right, it's the first one. What's wrong?
Because now you have an object with those keys. And you can't really do that to those keys.
Yeah, because X is going to X is the object with num and is odd. I can't mod an object by 2.
Right.
I could do this. That would work. Or should work. So only odds 1. That's grabbing all my odds number using the num key. And this one's working by grabbing the is odd Boolean key. What if I map over this? So I filter and then I map. What is only odds 1 going to be now? So here's what it is before I just added that map. And now I'm adding the map. What is it? What is it going to change to? I'm going to get rid of this right there.
Is it just gonna give all the num key and values?
Num value, so it's going to be an array of numbers.
But those are the numbers that are odd, right?
Yes, because I would first
Yes.
filter and then map.
So you're finding all the ones that are odd and then mapping just those number values.
And then if I could do this the reverse way where I could map over them, return the number, and then filter. Now, okay, so if we switch it this way, I map and do X and return X.num. Now this is an array of numbers, right? So now if I call a filter on the array of numbers, now C is going to be a number. So now I can do like C a mod 2 does not equal 0.
And what if you did, it does equal 0, would it? Because those are all odd. So just an empty array?
I did, yeah, let's say it equals zeros.
Yeah.
That would give me my even numbers.
Oh, okay.
So that's filtering. If I do it like that way, that one's going to filter out the even numbers. If I say equal, it's going to filter out the odd numbers. So at this point, like I do have like even and odds, but filtering, I'm removing the odds. I could also do like, C is greater than 100. And C dot is odd. I can make this as C mod 2 equals 0.
So what if you did have an array that was all even, but you were returning odds? What does it do in that case? Like on line 81, if you had your original array, instead of it returning all the odd, what if it were returning even and then you asked for the odd, but it didn't have any? Would it be returning an empty array?
Yeah, so let's just do that as like nums like X. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So I say let T whatever equal nums X dot filter. I could go ahead, I could remove all the evens. Dot. So that would remove all of the I'm now like confusing myself. So if it does not, if it's not divisible, if it's odd, let's keep it. And then we could do a filter again. And mod to equal 0. Console.log t. I don't know if like I can get like a string in there. I mean, once again, I'm throwing a string in function, so I'm using this mod operator. So I like really want to know what to expect. But yeah, with this, it doesn't really matter. Probably it's always going to be an empty array. Because I'm removing all of the evens, and then I go remove all the odds. So that'd be always an empty array. So once again, this kind of becomes, it's like the evaluation. We're evaluating this first. And then really we're like going through each thing, running this function that we're passed. So we do the map function, then we go through each thing in an array and we run this inner function and start accumulating that thing. Then we create that new array, then we go through the filter function, and then we go through each thing, that new array we just created from the map, and then pass this function.
So just, I want to make sure I got this right. The dot and then whatever method, so dot filter, dot map is performing it on whatever it's hooked to with the dot. Is that right?
Yes. So, and this thing that it's hooked to, this needs to be like, it has to be in an array. It can be in an array, and it's also, I'm going to say this, it needs to be, I mean, it doesn't have to be, but it's going to be very prone to errors or very confusing if this array of objects, or this array is not the same type of things. What I mean, you can like, you could get it to work, but you wouldn't want to like have like, an array of mixed objects and then do like an xtop map. Why is that kind of bad? Or like, what is the issue with this? Because map, when I call map, I'm calling it on an array, and then I pass it a function I want to run on each thing of the array. So this
Function won't be able to run the same on each different data type.
yeah, which type, what am I expecting this T to be? T, well,
Only a
if
number.
it could be a number, it could be a string, or it could be an object with the C string. So, I could do something like this. If type of T I mean, I could do this. Let's just do this, because it's if type of T equal number, return, T, let's just return it, let's interpolate it. T is a number. Now I can do math on a number. Can add 1 plus T equals 1 plus T. So here's my map function, and then I could do like if type of T equals with like a string. Do something like this, like a return. I'm just going to copy this whole thing. Is a string. I'll find the length. So I can like so here I'm checking it's a string. So since I'm doing this check, I now can do, T dot length. And then I could do like something like this. Return. Default T is object with C key. Whose value is T.C. All right, let's this. I think I'm being confused. Like I'm kind of trying to make this confusing for fun. This is kind of getting at like doing things like with different kinds of data. What is bar? First of all, what is bar going to be? Like, what's at a high level? What is the data structure going to be?
That array above.
Not this array above. You mean this array above?
Well, I mean, it's going to pull for information from that, isn't it? Because you said bar equals x dot map.
Yeah. Well, since I know it does a map, I know bars, it's going to be in an array.
Yeah.
An array of what? Well, if it's a number, if T is a number, it's going to be, it's going to return a string. If T is a string, it's going to return a string. But if T is this object, it's going to return an object. So this is, I'm mixing and matching data types, which I can do. I have an array. So I go through, 1 is a number and can add 1 plus 1 equals 2. 2 is a number and can't add 1 and 2 is 3. These are just strings. If it's a string, like if my thing's a string, I can do my length. But if my thing is an object, then I just return an object. like this works, but now I got this like mixed matched datas. So you can do stuff like this. Maybe there's a case you want to, but like this can get confusing if like you're trying to like do a map function on data that is not uniform. And then if you're doing a map function, you know, to return different types of data would also be like, why would you do that? Because then this array is going to be an array of mixed types. Generally speaking, not what we want to do.
Like the best way to do that, like if you did want to get different data types, would just be to have an array of objects, right? And then you can pull those specific data types where you want them, right? Like how we've been doing with Axios and our
No,
backend.
so it's fine to take like, here's what I'm saying, like we can take an array of numbers, we can map, and we can convert that to, you know, an array of, like, let's just do an array of strings. Like that's, I'm not trying to say it's bad to like go from, like, because that's what map is for. Like map is to take one type of data and convert it to another. Like this is good. Like this is what we do with React. You know, we take our array of like JSON and we can map it to an array of JSX. You know, probably what we don't want to do is we don't want to map something into like this different kind. You know, where I have an array of, like I have an array of, that's one that's a string, the other thing that's a number, the other thing that's an object. Like you could get this to work, but
Yeah, that's kind of what I'm saying. Just like to keep the same data types in your arrays.
Yeah.
Like, don't mismatch them.
yeah, because I want like an array of numbers. I want an array of strings, or I want an array of, you know, objects where like the objects look the same. So if I have an array of objects, it's like, you know, name, which is a string. And even the types of those are going to be the same. Those are uniform. Like it would be bad. Yeah, if that was like first name. In one, like the key was name, and the other one it was first name, or the key was age and it was number in one, and then a string in the other. Like bad. Like not uniform. Yeah. So I think we can stop it here. We did a deeper dive that this I think you've been using map, you've been using filter, but I think and you've been using functions. Yeah, in these next like 4 weeks, I really want to go in and like make it so we know what these are saying, so you can read them, so you can write them. So you can see a weird example like this and be like, okay, yeah, this works, but that probably is not going to be the best way to do things. But I don't, was this a little confusing?
I think it may have been a little confusing, but I also think it was helpful. Because now we have this video to review and we can go over it, but it also has, you know, way more explanation of things, so.
Yeah, it's definitely like a deeper dive into things. So it's looking at like why things are happening, how they actually work, instead of just like, okay, here's me mapping over an array of numbers to see if they're odd. Here's the code for that. Now the homework is you go map over an array of numbers to see if they're even. It's very easy to take that code, change the like not operator, but yeah, we're going to dive deeper into just like basic JavaScript stuff. So for your homework today, I guess we'll go over it when we get back, but it's going to be, I want you to go back through your hackathon, look at the filter methods, look at the map methods, like look at what you're doing and try to explain it.
Okay.
Because, right, I think if I were to have asked you on some of the stuff, like what's going on here, even though it was working, I don't think you would have been able to maybe thoroughly explain it. And then also the other part of homework today is going to be spending some time doing some like brain teasers on Edibit. Have you been doing any of those lately?
I've used Edibit a lot. I actually bought the year pass for it, so I don't have like the 5-minute thing.
Yeah, I maxed out my thing.
I
So
can
I'm getting
also
more.
like I can write some brain teasers for you too. So I'll do that over lunch if you max it out. I'll come up with some brain teasers that you can do. But there's also, you might want to, how much is it for Edibit?
It's like they're 25 a month or something like that, but it's 120 for the year.
There's also, yeah, there's like Code Wars. I think some of those other ones are free, but yeah, they might kind of do a similar thing where you get maxed out and do that. I'll come up with a couple brain teasers too. So if you don't want to do Edibit, I'll have some for you.
Okay.
Cool. Yeah, let's come back at 2 o'clock at the TA channel. Have a good one.
You too.